Good afternoon, I'm Noah M. Horowitz of Texpatriate, and this is Texpatriate's Week in Review. For mid-July, it has started to look a little bit more normal for politics in the city, as municipal politics has really started to take center stage, with the campaign finance reports that were filed on June 30th, by and large being released to the public this past week. Most eyes politically in Houston started the shift to City Hall and away from the Capitol. That being said, a lot of things did happen at the Capitol, both in the legislature and happening in 2014. Specifically, Attorney General Greg Abbott officially announced his campaign for governor, as well as State Representative Dan Branch. He had very heavily suggested he would run for Attorney General, but this week he really made it official. And former El Paso Mayor John Cook announced that he would run for Land Commissioner, becoming the first Democrat to officially put his name out there. The legislature also took some actions this week. The House passed a transportation funding bill that was significantly different than the one the Senate passed last week. They are going to have to probably the Senate's going to be asked to pass another plan before it even goes to conference. And then Perry signed HB 2, the omnibus anti-abortion bill, into law. The Democrats have promised a lawsuit, but that did not happen. So first, when it comes to campaign finance, Mayor Parker put out a very strong report. She's raised more than $2 million. Her chief contender, Ben Hall, did not put out very much money. Most of the money that was in his campaign account was raised himself. They were self-donations, and a lot of people were saying that this contradicted what he had insinuated in his press releases. I don't know if I would go that far, but it was definitely a lackluster report on behalf of his campaign. We have been introduced to a new candidate for mayor, Carol Douglas. She, of course, was an attorney and activist who ran for chairman of the Harris County Democratic Party last year against Lane Lewis. She was accused of engaging in homophobic campaigning against him, so it's an open question about whether or not she will resume said practices in her campaign against Mayor Parker. Now, among the district reports, there weren't a lot of surprises. Most people raised the amount of money you would think that they would raise. The key exception is Ben Mendez. He is a candidate for District I, James Rodriguez's term-limited seat on the city council. He is not one of the favorites that a lot of people have been talking about. Those have been more along the lines of Robert Gallegos and Gracia Garces. I apologize if I mispronounce these names. In state news, Attorney General Greg Abbott made a big announcement in San Antonio. There's something about making big political announcements in San Antonio nowadays. I guess the Republicans have caught on to the changing demographics. But Abbott announced that he was going to run for governor. I don't know if he actually said this, or if it was one of his overzealous supporters in the state house. I saw a representative make this as he made a joke about some politicians having a spine of steel and him actually having one. Abbott then went on a tour around the state. He came to Houston. He was at the Armadillo Palace on Kirby a few days ago. He's been in El Paso, Dallas, Austin, really trying to campaign hard for this for the governor's office, really to hit the ground running. Dan Branch, a state representative from the DFW area, who had very seriously hinted that he would be running for Attorney General if Abbott ran for governor, made that official shortly after Abbott's announcement. Now, the big news, politically speaking, for the 2014 elections was John Cook, who was the mayor of El Paso from 2005 to last month, when after 8 years and term limits, he was forced to give up the position. He has announced that he is going to be running for Land Commissioner as a Democrat against George P. Bush is the main contender in the GOP for that seat. Cook has had a pretty interesting record as the mayor. He pushed hard for the deal that was very controversial within El Paso to demolish the city hall there and put up a baseball stadium in its place. but he also has been a very big proponent of gay rights. He pushed domestic partnership legislation twice and even was threatened with a recall. There was almost a recall election. There were some questions about the integrity of the signatures on the petition, so the recall election never occurred, but there was a lot of blowback from him because of this, and this was just a year ago. So it's not clear whether that's going to be a help or hindrance next year to be such a big supporter of gay rights. Like Bill White, of course, he is an old white guy who's the mayor of a big city, but it looks like he may not shy away from those progressive causes the way that Bill White did in a statewide race. Now, the legislature, of course, is still in session. The House approved HJR 2, which is a transportation funding measure. It's the same type of bill that the Senate approved last week, but it's very different. The Senate approved a bill last week that would withdraw money from the rainy day fund for transportation funding. The House bill takes money from the gas tax that's earmarked for education and redirects it to transportation, and then money is withdrawn from the rainy day fund for education. Now, a lot of people are uneasy about this because it might mean even less money for education. There's talk of compromise between the House and the Senate. The House has adjourned until next Thursday, until July 25th. And also in big news this week, Governor Perry signed HB 2, the omnibus anti-abortion bill. There was a big ceremony at the Capitol with a lot of people there, a lot of state representatives and just members of the political community there. There was also a very loud counter-protest. There weren't all that many people that showed up, but they were very zealous about their positions. They were donned completely in black clothing, carried wire coat hangers. In a few demonstrations, they lied down pretending to be dead with pieces of paper scotch taped to their chests, having letters on it, so when they were all lying down together, it spelled out shame. The Democrats have promised a lawsuit to this bill, saying that it's a violation of the Constitution. There wasn't a lawsuit filed by end of business today, to my knowledge. Possibly that could come next week. As I understand it, since this was passed in a second special session, the law won't take effect until November 1st. That is Texpatriate's Week in Review. Thank you. Have a good weekend.